Behold, and welcome. My name is Walker Stipe. Today we are talking about Deep Locker, how AI can power a stealthy new breed of malware. But not actually. That's not actually what we're talking about. What we're actually talking about is a cat. No, we were talking about the work of Peter Watts, and how he fucking called it. He fucking called it. What a G. What a G. This is the face of man you can trust because look at Mr. Snuffles. Look. Peter Watts, my favorite sci-fi author. That's a big statement. What are we doing? What are we doing? That includes Philip K. Dick. I'm talking about the Legends. I really think he's that good. Wrote this trilogy, the Rifters trilogy, Starfish Behemoth, and Maelstrom. I have not finished them. What? I'm like halfway through the second book. You got a problem? 3-part trilogy, I'm not done. I'm talking about it. Making a Yeah, I am. Okay, we're going to take some snippets in the book. I've talked about this many times. There's a literal pandemic. We've been over that. But then there's a virtual pandemic. A virtual pandemic? What do you mean? There's like a virus that's like actually AI and it's like doing things in the cyberspace? Yeah, it's really freaky and really cool. Makes for good fiction. I was quite titillated by this, and it turns out it's real. It's real. It's been around for roughly two-ish years here, and that's pretty scary. It's pretty scary. So I'd like to go over a little bit on what I'm learning, a tidbit about cybersecurity, because I'm hoping to have some conversations about it, and it's also quite depressing. Facebook, little data leak. And it's quite funny when a private company, it's not a utility, because, okay, private company that is the number one lobbyist in the United States, Facebook, led by our Lord and Savior, Zucky Ducks, they leak data to over 500 million users. Apparently there are less than 500 million or so human beings in North America, the continent. So cybersecurity, hot button, will definitely be one of the forefronts of warfare in the coming and present years. So let's educate ourselves a bit on where are we with AI-powered cyber attacks and things, and in particularly the worm, which is a self-replicating and now a self-learning attack. Stuxnet, the famous Israeli question mark example, is one of worm. Deep Locker, how AI can power a stealthy new breed of malware. I hate the little 7-minute read. This will definitely be longer than 7 minutes. You can fuck yourself. So you're not trying to read it fast. You're trying to consume and learn from the information. What are we trying to do? To consume as much as we can and not process any of it. Okay. Sample efficiency is more than just speed. Fuck you. By Mark P.H. These delightful people, thank you. Cybersecurity is an arms race. We're not going to read the whole thing flat out, but we're going to a bit of it. Cybersecurity is an arms race where attackers and defenders play a constantly evolving cat and mouse game. Hello, Tom. Hello, Jerry. Hello, Mom. Hello, Dad. We're doing. Every now new era of computing has served attackers with new capabilities and vulnerabilities to execute their nefarious actions. Side note, cybersecurity people have way too much fun. Okay? Stop having so much fun. Stop it. No, it's awesome. I'm glad you guys have a good time. In the PC era, PC Master Race, we witnessed malware threats emerging from viruses and worms, and the security industry responded with antivirus software. In the web era, attacks such as cross-site request forgery and cross-site scripting were challenging web applications. Now we are in the cloud, analytics, mobile, and social cams era. And advanced persistent threats, APTs, have been on the top of CIOs and CSOs' minds. Basically, things have evolved to whatever the latest hotness is. That's where the enemies will attack you. Of course. How could it be anything else? But we are on the cusp of a new era, the artificial intelligence era. Welcome to the show. The shift to machine learning and AI is the next major progression in IT. I saw some interesting stats on that recently where this is like shockingly true. Enterprises are like, yeah, we know this, but it's cool to see numbers. However, cybercriminals are also studying AI to use it to their advantage and weaponize it. How will the use of AI change cyber attacks? Thumbnail. What are the characteristics of AI-powered attacks, and how can we defend against them? Good luck. At IBM Research, this is from them, they do some good stuff. A lot of people are like, ooh, they're so humdrum and old. Yeah, they also do some cool things, much more than a lot of other companies at least. At IBM Research, we are constantly studying the evolution of technologies, capabilities, and techniques in order to identify and predict new threats and stay ahead of cybercriminals. Yeah. One of the outcomes, which we will present at the Black Hat USA 2018 conference, is Deep Locker. I love this. This is a neat, I don't really know of other research fields or industries that do this as much as cyber security people, where they're like, hey, we developed an attack, so we should defend against it. But we made an attack. That's the fun bit. Who doesn't love attacking and aggression? I certainly do. You should too. So they made this thing. This is not theoretical. This is like, hey, we produced this and it functions and there's no defense against it. We should deal with that. So they presented their work at this conference. A new breed of highly targeted and evasive attack tools powered by AI. So two big points: highly targeted, shockingly, and evasive, incredibly evasive, invisible. So they developed it to understand existing AI models and combining them with malware sort of stuff. So the synthesis of typical malware attacks and AI, basically. Conceals its intent until it reaches a specific victim. And I mean like literally like you, not like a class, although you could do that too. But it can get very, very specific. As soon as it identifies the target, using indicators like facial recognition, geolocation, and voice recognition. In the fantasy realm, of sci-fi and fantasy things, if you know the name of the wind, name of the wind, hello, love, great book, thank you, Patrick, then you have power over it. You can control it, and it's weird that we are now in the phase of life where science is so advanced that it feels like magic. Congrats, we're there, and just your voice, this one right here, or yours, whoever's, can trigger an attack, as well as just your face, just your face, or to reference Lil Nas, "Call Me by Your Name," and can trigger an attack, and an undetectable sort of thing. Pretty wild. You can think of it like a sniper. Everybody loves the military, as opposed to the spray and pray typical, infect everybody and hope you hit your target. It's designed to be stealthy. We get it. So, a bit of history. This is super fascinating. We're not going to get into it overly much. Basically, how I would summarize this section is all of these problems are ones that we can address. They're problems that have at least theoretical and, as of now, solutions. And even when they were first sort of coming to bear in the 90s and 80s and early 2000s, when they arose, it was relatively like, oh, okay, so they're doing this, so we need to address it like this. And it wasn't too far-fetched how you would approach them. Not saying that it was easy, and a lot of money and great people have thrown their mental weight at these problems and have largely been successful, which is pretty amazing. But we're in a new stage. So let's talk about that. Feel free to read this. It was fascinating to me since it's novel to me. Here's the key takeaway from this section. Where we are currently is we had all these problems, and now all of these triggers are observable to skilled malware analysts with the appropriate tools. I perused another article which literally they surveyed a bunch of top CIOs and CTOs and whatever, and they're like, we're going to be out of the job. Like, we don't need to exist, and particularly in the cyber security realm, because a lot of this stuff is just, we have the tools. You can script it away, and you can automate it. I don't quite know how high the veracity of that is, but the fact that I think it was something like 40-ish% who were like, yeah, we'll be good, is wild. Push back in the comments if you know that's bullshit. I did not have the time to dive into it as deep as I should. Hoping to have a conversation with some cybersecurity people in the near future. Now on to their new attack. Ultra-targeted and evasive malware. DeepLocker has changed the game of malware evasion by taking a fundamentally different approach from any other current evasive and targeted malware. Change the process, change the product. If you got that reference, rip and tear, my friends. DeepLocker hides its malicious payload in benign carrier applications, such as a video conference software. A lot of people downloading those in the year 2020, to avoid detection by most antivirus and malware scanners. What is unique about DeepLocker is that the use of AI makes the trigger conditions to unlock the attack almost impossible to reverse engineer. That is not an understatement. Non-decomposability of neural networks is a thing, and there's some ways you can kind of do it, but they are very expensive, they're very muddy, and not at all realistic to deploy in the real world for, hey, I'm going to download the software, let my computer antivirus scan it real quick, make sure it's safe. You cannot do that for neural nets, and that's a theoretical, there's probably no way we could do that. So, just to steel man that point they're making. Love that phrase, steel man. If you haven't noticed. The malicious payload will only be unlocked if the intended target is reached. It achieves this by using a deep neural network, AI model. And to some extent, it's actually key that it uses a deep neural network, because a lot of other machine learning methods, like a decision tree, for instance, it explains itself. It literally tells you what it's doing. It can still be large and things, but would make a terrible attack. So the neural network structure is rather integral here, where it's not always for machine learning, so kind of fun. The AI model is trained to behave normally unless it is presented with a specific input, the trigger conditions, identifying specific victims. The neural network produces the key to unlock the attack. DeepLocker can leverage several attributes to identify its targets, including visual, audio, geolocation, and system-level features. And I'll add that current neural networks can take pretty much any data stream, Internet of Things style, but these are high-dimensional. They're highly agnostic to dimensions and things. They're amazing. Obviously, I'm a fan, but migraines. What causes them? We don't know. But you can kind of sort of learn little triggers, but there's rarely ever a single trigger, a key, not a key, but a trigger that sets it off. Sometimes it's dehydration. Sometimes it's a comorbidity of a bunch of different things. Neural networks can learn this type of structure, so you can never say, this is the cause, this is the trigger. It can be on this day with this person, with that, and it's a high-dimensional thing. So I'm kind of stating here that even our sort of basic science, our basic ways of thinking as little monkey-brained humans, doesn't really match up to this kind of attack. This is really advanced and really hard to track with traditional science. As it is virtually impossible to exhaustively enumerate all possible trigger conditions, yes, and again, these things interact, so you have exponential explosions and things. This method would make it extremely challenging for malware analysts, impossible, for malware analysts to reverse engineer the neural network and recover the mission-critical secrets, including the attack payload and the specifics of the target. When attackers attempt to infiltrate a target with malware, a stealthy, targeted attack needs to conceal two main components: the trigger condition and the attack payload. DeepLocker is able to leverage the black box neural network, they're called that for a reason, nature of the deep neural network AI model to conceal the trigger condition. A simple if this then that decision tree and others trigger condition is transformed into a yeah, okay, we just went over this. Yeah, they're already black boxes, so literally no change required, which is kind of funny. Right, you can just tell, you don't have to hide it. You're like, here's the neural net. Is there an attack in there? Who knows? And you can't tell. Technically, this method allows 3 layers of attack concealment. That is, given a deep locker AI model alone, it is extremely difficult for malware analysts to figure out what class of target it's looking for. Is it after people's faces or some other visual cues? This is actually a little oversimplistic, which we mentioned earlier. It could be a comorbidity of things. Yeah. The payload is encrypted. Yeah, I don't even necessarily think this is right. I do think it's a beautiful visualization, but I think it's the situation is more dire than presented here. It's just like, oh, it's these three simple things. So they did this. They used an example of ransomware called WannaCry, which makes me think of the Puppet Master in Ghost in the Shell. I'm a nerd. And they did it. You can read that. You sit down at your computer and the bomb goes off. Virtual bomb, what have you. Anything else? Yeah. So they brought this. They wanted to talk about it. And where are we now? Right. This was in 2018. This is in 2018. And can you see that? Yes, you can. Delightful. Time has passed. A lot of time has passed, actually. And again, not an expert in the field. It's not my field, but definitely it is close to mine. It's still in the computer science realm. And it's fascinating how these attacks, I'm forgetting the name for, it's an attack that you know works, but you haven't used yet. So it's like in your arsenal. I can't remember the term. I learned it from a friend who was a cybersecurity person. And this is very much so in the wheelhouse of attackers, right? This has been around for a few years. I don't think attackers are idiots. We've definitely learned that. And what's the defense? Have we figured out how to defend it like we did these other 3 types of attacks? I don't think so. And I think part of the reason is we still don't know really how neural nets work. And I don't think we will. I think that they are that complex and sort of like fundamentally structured where they're not kind of in line with how our mathematics and science have been done, which has been a little bit overemphasizing truth. We need to get away from our love of truth a little bit and more towards usefulness. And I've done the math metaphysics video on that. 2 + 2 = 5, postmodernism and stuff. I actually know dog shit about postmodernism, but I know a bit about computation and theoretical physics. So there it is. Yeah, so this could be really tough. When, AI is the buzzword in the world right now. I'm a fan, but knowing that it brings in such new problems that that we cannot use our old tricks to solve. So, to quote The Incredibles, the only thing powerful enough to destroy it is itself. We're going to need to use AI to defend against these things. That seems to me the only realistic option. Which brings us back to starfish. We're gonna have this on the screen because it's the better picture. In the books, plural, their solution to this problem of self-replicating worms that are artificially intelligent. They don't have to be that smart, but smart enough to learn and do nefarious things in the internet space. Their solution was what they called a head cheese, or a network of head cheeses. The head cheese is a big, fat, chunky, big chungus, big Yoshi neural network, which acts as a node, like a big sort of I'm forgetting the actual term in real world, like a data warehouse kind of thing where it's a point from which information on the internet has to pass through. What is that phrase? It's going to bug me. It doesn't matter. We're going to move on. These head cheeses, these big neural networks acts as sort of cleaning agents. They are smart enough to be able to detect whether or not files and programs and things are nefarious, even if they're a deep neural network. So we have this in delightful Peter Watts' science fiction. It's still just fiction, but I'm very intrigued to see the history, the future of this war. Literally war, I guess. It's a cyber war, but nonetheless, there will be lots of money and lives affected. So, kind of cool to have a guy like this propose something. He captured my mind. I just think it's so fascinating. And then to encounter an actual factual paper. I guess they made it into a conference paper, so I guess it's a paper. Yeah, I don't know where this stands. I intend to converse about it with people who would know. I don't. Goodbye. There's Patreon, PayPal. I need money. I do. No pressure. But again, it's been around for 2 years. I don't think anybody has a solution. Maybe we should talk about it. Maybe we should, because otherwise, literally nothing is safe. Truth is dead. Why? That's a lot. That's a lot. Maybe we should at least be able to keep our money, keep our things. Maybe.